All right, good evening. I am Melissa Irvin, Chair of the Planning Commission, and I am going to call this meeting in order at 6:30 p.m. on November 20th. All right, Nick, can you help us out with roll call first?
Yes. Chair Irvin,
Present.
Commissioner Kendall,
Here.
Commissioner Etter, pardon me,
Present.
and Commissioner Clifford Reynolds is absent. You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, so this is a continuation of the Saulsbury Conditional Use and Site Plan Review request for outdoor RV storage, file number CU 24-1 and SP 24-3. I get to read this fun statement, so just stay with me or tune out for a second, whatever boat you boat. This is the time and place set for the hearing on planning file CU 24-1 and SP 24-3. The hearing is now called to order. The hearing will proceed as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Applicant will present its application and supporting evidence. Any interested persons will then be provided the opportunity to present testimony or evidence in support that is neutral or that is in opposition. Applicant, as the party bearing the burden of proof, will then be afforded an opportunity to present rebuttal testimony. Staff will provide closing comments. Any party may request that the written record remain open to respond to testimony presented at the hearing. At the conclusion of this hearing, the Planning Commission may close the public hearing and deliberate, close the public hearing and defer deliberations towards a decision at a date and time certain, or continue the public hearing at a date and time certain. All testimony, argument, and evidence must be directed to the applicable criteria or any other approval criteria you believe to be applicable. Matters unrelated to the application are not pertinent to the Planning Commission's decision in these proceedings. Failure on the part of any person to raise an issue that is not specific enough to afford the Planning Commission and parties to this proceeding an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the City Council and Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to conditions of approval with sufficient relevance to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Commissioners must disclose any ex parte contacts, which include site visits, biases, or conflicts of interest. Does any commissioner have anything to disclose? Commissioner Kendall? Kendall said no. Commissioner Etter?
I do not.
And this is Commissioner Irvin. I do not. Does any party in this building wish to challenge any member of our body? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. One of the primary reasons that we continued this hearing was because I reported that I included the wrong criteria in the staff report. So the staff report in the packet does include the county approval criteria. After going through that, two things. One, the criteria aren't all that different, and that's, again, intentional. And then secondly, the conditions of approval did not change. Something I wanted to report to the Planning Commission that's somewhat related and relates to the past history of the Planning Commission City Council is that, this property is located in the county's mixed-use employment zone. And Ordinance 889 that was passed by the City Council in, I think, 2016 changed all the C1 zoned land south of Fairgrounds Road to mixed-use employment because, again, we didn't have the ability to expand our urban growth boundary for more industrial land at that time. And so one of the things that was brought up through that effort was we've got commercial land in the city south of Fairgrounds Road, and then we also have county commercial land outside the city limits that was in the urban growth boundary. And so there was a distinct effort to align those development codes so that annexation and development could be made easier. Okay, and so that's why you have both land inside the city and land outside the city's zone mixed use employment in the same area. It's to ease with that transition. And, you know, I do note that the county's development code, section 310, mixed use employment. I'll just read the purpose statement just for a second, because I think it does give you a flavor of why we're approaching this land use proposal in the manner we are. And I would admit it's a little odd, but the purpose statement says, a zoning district intended to provide future opportunities for the development of a variety of urban employment uses, including business parks, offices, service outlet, light manufacturing / assembly, wholesale trade and showrooms, warehouse, distribution, storage, trade schools, retail goods and services, and other retail, commercial, and light industrial uses that are commonly found in mixed-use employment districts. Housing is not permitted as a standalone use, but may be approved as an ancillary use. This is in the county, by the way. Annexation is required prior to development approval. And for employment uses, unless the proposed development can be served with a on-site septic system and the city approves the development. So in effect, what we're trying to do here is allow some level of mixed-use employment development, or uses, is I think is a better term in this particular case, that do not require connection to city sewer. In such case, a septic, or in this particular case, no sewer service of any type is needed, okay? Because there's no buildings that are proposed, no structures, anything like that. There's no plumbing even to the site. So I think that's a good refresher as to how we came to this place of mixed-use employment today, the intentionality of the city and the county aligning our development codes and zoning so that we can make it easier for when actual development is proposed, that the annexation can occur fairly quickly and easily. The uses between the two are the same. So from a transportation or infrastructure perspective, there really isn't a whole lot of change other than they need to mitigate their impacts, right? When development mean, you know, increase in activity through the use of, you know, buildings or other improvements on the site. So with that said, the proposed use is a conditional use in the county's mixed use employment zone. The findings include that criteria for the county's conditional use. They're almost exactly the same as the city's. And the site plan review standards are very nearly the same as well. They do not have any design standards, but as the prior draft of the decision noted, the design standards of the city didn't apply because they're not proposing any structures. There's nothing to follow those standards. So at that point, just want to get back to the issue of Merritt Lane. We established in the prior hearing that the subject property did dedicate a portion of their land for the right-of-way there. There is public right-of-way or a public road up to the northwest corner of the property, so they do have a public access. They don't need an easement, or we don't need any more right-of-way dedicated. And Jeff, our Public Works Director, is here. If I've got any of that wrong, please feel free to straighten me out on that. But from an access perspective, we're in good shape there. Want to be clear though that any new structure that's coming in that may require plumbing is going to require site plan review, and it may require them to extend the sewer, bring utilities to the site, which I want to be very clear right now, was probably going to be very expensive because there's no other utilities in that right away. So this is a challenge that they and the city are going to have. So I think this is a reasonable use in the interim until that economically becomes viable to bear that cost to extend infrastructure to the site, and then it'll be a higher and more intense use that will occur there. But as it exists today, I think based on the comments that are submitted to the record by also the Public Works Director, I think we're in good shape. Staff's recommending approval with the same conditions of approval. Okay. Most of those, I'll leave it at that. Jeff, did you need to make any comments under staff report or just want to respond to comment or questions as they come up? Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. That concludes my staff report.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have applicant testimony. If the applicant has any new information to add. Okay. Do we have any proponent testimony? That's somebody who's for this change. Do we have anyone online? I keep forgetting to ask. Okay. Do we have any neutral testimony? And do we have any opponent testimony? Okay, go ahead and come up. If you can say your name for the record and where you live. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim McDonald with Irish Sales and Service, 181 Southwest Merritt Lane. So moving forward, as we've ironed out some of the easement issues off of Merritt Lane, it's came to my attention earlier this week as to the access on Grant Street. Being as the property behind this property has now gone through bankruptcy and getting sold to a new person, I got approached about it as far as access off of Grant Street, which Grant Street, to everyone that I've ever seen's knowledge, started as the people that owned that property previously put in access through their own property, the property in proposal here, and the property behind to get access back to there. So it was virtually an easement through their own property to gain access to the same property in the back corner. Now that this lot has gone in, basically they've killed Grant Street, and people have trying to say that it's on our property, yet no easement's been given. And using your guys' map here shown tonight, you can see our property line, and then there's an easement for Grant Street just over the fence. And so my concern is that easement going to be going through the middle of this parking lot in the corner, or is it going to potentially try to purchase an easement, or how's that going to work with Grant Street moving forward with two owners? Which you can
Nick,
see
would you be able to answer that question?
it coming off the
I
corner
prefer
there.
if the Public Works Director maybe respond to that.
Okay.
Right. Of course, you can see our property line there. Be interesting to see how it lies.
All right, so what we're looking at here is 1800 is the subject property. And then this double set of dashed lines is Grant Street. I don't know how to do that, Jeff.
Hear me on record. Then we can hammer this out.
Sounds good.
So yeah, scroll down, Nick. Hit agree and continue. La la la. Yep. Just click it. Oh yeah, or whatever. Everybody does it different. And if you go to files, one of them works, one of them doesn't. I think it's PP works and PLA does not. PP, I said PP on record. Yeah, okay, so scroll down to where you can actually see the partition plat. So there's a North Unit Irrigation District easement, and then there's that lateral. There isn't an easement there. That's why I was saying those tax maps.
So Grant Street doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
So have we looked into this when they split this piece of property off from the property they used to own in the back? So now there's been a property sold that's maybe potentially landlocked?
It could be
Because of
potentially,
it?
is because is parcel two the one you're thinking?
Partial two they used to own, and the current purchaser of that property that's going through the bankruptcy proceedings to purchase it.
It's not parcel two, it's the one below it.
No, the guy I talked to is purchasing partial two.
Oh, he's
and
purchasing parcel two.
So they used to own all of it, and they bought it as a whole chunk, split it in half, and they've kept parcel one.
Right.
And now the person trying to purchase parcel two, even though there was the showing of an easement through parcel one, now is kind of lost and there's a potential landlock issue.
Yeah,
Unless something's given through McLaughlin.
that's a good call. So because that easement that looks like a road, looking at this, that looks like that's all North Unit to me.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't look like it's an actual road easement dedicated to anybody. So Nick, if you go to, and go back to the GIS website.
Is there any easement in the court recorded for that area?
I haven't seen any.
Well, that's the thing. That's why you pull up the plat, because when they do the partition plats, the guy doing it has to pull all the backdated information and put all the current information on there. That's why they're better. So, yeah, because you
see
can
there at the
see,
bottom of the screen is McLaughlin Lane. Well, see if you know what you're looking for. Just a little further south, Bethany, where your mouse was at.
yeah, there you go.
There you go. See, that is providing access to McLaughlin Lane or this.
Which is that 1801 that
where
we're
the big
looking
green
at.
spot's at.
So, but the other thing, like to his point, under that plat, can we go back to it and make sure that cause see how it looks like it's cut off right there? Keep going down. Okay, so it does. They have access off of McLaughlin.
Okay, the address still reads Grant Street, so that's where the biggest
Yeah.
concern came from when this got split. So moving forward, we can assume that Grant Street is completely null and void.
I would, unless somebody provides you documentation that proves otherwise, but I'm looking at this and I would say there's no easement there. I think they're counting the North Unit easement saying that's a road, and I don't think it really is.
So either.
Yep, I don't think it is.
Okay, and so my question being then further, is this something that will need to, that the people purchasing that property will have to clarify to make sure there's no issue as far as the conditional use goes moving forward with this property?
From what I'm understanding, this is a question for that other lot and does not apply in this situation because Grant does not go through this particular lot.
You can. I think there needs to be a relationship between the issue and the approval criteria.
Correct.
And so in this case, you know, county code requires that, you know, you have access to the site, there's access to it. The proposed use is actually not inhibiting the use of 1801 or the access to 1801 via McLaughlin. If the planning commission wanted to, you could require the applicant to not place anything in the area of Grant Street on the subject property, but there again, you know, I don't know the legality of that even because based on the partition plat that we just all looked at, there's no legal access there. If anything, it may be some private easement, but you know, when I looked at it, I don't even see any easements recorded on the property, the subject property for, you know, other than like I'm gonna pull it up right here. Shoot.
Well, they got 5.9 acres. of
So
land.
we've got, there's no easements even recorded. There's a warranty deed and a couple partition plats and property line adjustments. So I've just not seen any rational justification to require an additional setback for the recreational vehicles that would be placed there. When I'm looking at other documents online, yeah, no, there's nothing indicating an easement there, so.
I think the only thing that could happen is maybe is the north unit easement, because they have a pipe going through there.
Yeah,
I believe they do.
Through
don't
my,
they?
well, the pipe ends in me somewhere.
Okay, so
I
does it,
believe, I'd have to check with them.
Right.
but It goes, the easement goes through part of me and then through the middle of that 1801.
right, because it's kind of goofy because you can see it's green.
Yeah.
So somebody's irrigating, so they're getting water there. But 1801 doesn't, so I don't even know.
I think 206 used to maybe at one point have a pipe or a.
So do they
floodgate,
get a
but
delivery coming up
yeah,
maybe?
North unit issue.
Right, I think that's the only thing, but as far as street access goes,
I think it answers my question that Grant Street is no further. And so just to clarify, Grant Street's not a street at
not
all.
a street.
Okay,
Not an easement, nothing.
that's what I need to know.
Unless somebody comes with some document and says it is otherwise,
No, that's perfect.
yeah.
That's kind of what we've always led to, but there's just always been a lot of drama around that subject. So that's really where I
Right.
wanted to iron this out for my.
Google
property.
says,
That's right.
You
All
just
right.
have Jeff show you how to
Right.
go through all of those
Well,
menu
The bottom
options.
line is
Thank you.
whoever,
Yep.
whoever wants to buy it better do their own due diligence.
That's fine. It solidifies my fence line. So that's what I'm concerned with. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, do we have any other testimony? All right, where'd my agenda go? Okay, so do we have any rebuttal testimony? Sure, come on up. And if you wouldn't mind saying your name for the record.
Jay Saulsbury, 630 8th Street in Culver. When we started the project and I had the property surveyed, could you go back to that plat? Or I mean, the tax lot where it shows the road and all that? Okay, so right there where that line crosses, goes east-west, there when it makes that little corner,
Where it says lateral?
no, down in the southeast corner of the property to the right, yeah,
Okay.
right there. So I called the Bureau of Reclamation and to find out if that lateral, that M5143 was going through our lot to confirm. So we explained that, or I explained that to the Bureau of Reclamation. There was, I don't know, it took like 90 days for them to get back to me. And so they could figure out if there were any possibilities of anybody needing any water going to the west. Well, you have Ford dealership and the houses on the south side of Merritt. So what he did is he vacated that lateral and kept the section where that 35 feet is. So what he told me is if they had to run water, irrigation water to the north of Merritt, they would just run it, they would straighten the easement, and it would go along Jimmy and I's property line up to the north and across Merritt. So there's no, Yeah, essentially, there's no irrigation that's going to go north of Merritt.
So there's no pipe running through there.
Like they said, you know, it stops right there at the south line of our lot. So it's a little goofy, but the 35-foot easement there is irrigation. And essentially, from what the BOR said, is he would extend it if somebody bought the lot, you know, behind the Ford dealership and decided to plant some hay or something. So the Grant Street, and we were always perplexed by it too. You know, we didn't know what the heck was going on. But the fence, and I think Grants, they used that road a little bit to go back and forth on their property. And it's gravelled and fenced and, you know, and all that. And, but that is, that's the reason we had it surveyed, to make sure and that lateral was not going to be, and talk to the BOR, make sure that lateral is not going to be used. Because otherwise, probably would have just let the lot go. So
when you did that survey, you did like a regular survey, did they find an easement for Grant Street? Did they identify a document?
No.
I don't think that's not.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know how they come up with it, but guess Grant was an electrician for years and years and years and years. And they had that address on there and it's still there, I think. But when we would work on the place or go to the rental house, we would use them to blow in.
Okay, so it sounds like Grant Street is not an official street. And that'll be up. I don't know if you are going to limit access because there is no easement there, or if you're just going to leave it the way that it is, but it's not part of this hearing, from what I understand.
I was just told to clear up
1800.
some of the access on Bobby and Jimmy's deals, because they have, from our fence, they have 35 feet, which is the easement that goes through there.
Yep.
So,
Okay, that makes sense. This case seems simple, but then it has had a couple little snags in it. Thank you for that information. Do we have any other testimony or comments? Okay, staff, do you have anything else to add at this point?
I do not.
Okay, so team, our commissioners, if we have any further questions from staff, we can ask that now. If we don't have any, then we can take a motion to close the public hearing. And then we can deliberate, so.
This is Commissioner Utter, and I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Kendall, I second it.
Great, I have a motion on the floor. All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And nobody is here to say no. All right, motion carries. So we have closed the public hearing and now we can move on to deliberation. So do either of you have any comments or anything to add to the discussion?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's well needed in this town. And so I'm happy to move forward and make a motion to approve this site.
Commissioner Kendall, I'll second the motion.
Great, so we have a motion on the floor, and I also wanted to say that a conditional use permit is a appropriate way to use property that may not be able to be served in a different way. So I think that this is a creative way to use property. Also, there are conditions with that conditional use permit. So if the use changes or there are known problems associated with that by nearby property owners, that conditional use permit allows also the public to come back and say, hey, they're not meeting the requirements of this. So I think that this is a a unique opportunity to use a piece of property that is currently not being used. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion carries. All right, so we can wrap up that item and move on to our next agenda item. There are 2 meeting minutes to approve, one from August 7th and one from September 18th. Have all commissioners reviewed the meeting minutes?
This is Commissioner Etter, and I did review the minutes.
Commissioner Kendall, I reviewed.
Commissioner Irvin, I reviewed as well. There were a couple little spelling errors. One was the spelling of Daimler's name in the September 18th meeting minutes. I don't think that that's material. So if you wouldn't mind just perusing that for just some spelling updates, that would be awesome. Any other changes proposed? All right, I can take a motion to approve both if you say the dates in your motion.
It's the August 7th and the September 18th. Yep. Okay. Commissioner Kendall, I propose that we approve the minutes of August 7th, 2024, and the minutes of September 18th, 2024.
This is Commissioner Etter, and I second that motion.
Wonderful. We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Agenda's approved. Thank you for giving us some agendas. I told Bethany after the last meeting to try not to give them all at one time because we have not approved minutes for a while. So thank you. All right. Is there any other discussion items?
Yeah, I wanted to talk kind of future meeting schedule for you. We will have a public hearing on some code amendments on December 4th. Nothing else is planned for month of December. And then when you look at January, the first Wednesday of the month is New Year's Day. It's a holiday. We will not be having planning commission. You can
Good, I
break your
won't be in
heart.
town.
So that means we'll have one meeting in January unless it becomes, unless there's a need for it, we'll have a special planning commission hearing and we would clear that date with you to make sure you're all available.
I would like to let the commission know that I will not be able to make the December 4th meeting. So that's 2 out of
So we don't,
4.
We won't
That-
have a quorum.
That math doesn't work.
that math does not work.
I
The accountant.
exactly. Or that dog won't hunt, says the hunter. Okay.
So it's a fairly straightforward set of code amendments. It's a legislative amendment for, we're changing section 20 of our development code so that better implements our public improvement design and construction standards that our public works department administers for streets, sewer, water. I mean,
Can we pick a different day in December?
well, I mean, we've already noticed it. So I guess, Jeff, if we renotice the hearing for, it'd have to be probably January 15th. Is that going to put a pinch on you for any reason? Great. Okay, so staff will post the December 4th Planning Commission meeting canceled. We will renotice it for a date in January, and we'll also post that on the same posting as the cancellation. Yeah, and then we do need to start talking about some planning commissioner training. Would like to help you guys out with some stuff. And so we could do that at any time. We can always meet for training that we don't even need to, I think we just post it on the website 7 days in advance. You're doing planning commissioner training on an agenda and that's it. So usually what we've done in the past is 3 to 4 trainings. They're about an hour each because if I go longer than that, you start.
Are they online?
I mean, they could be
Oh.
via Zoom. Ideally not.
No, okay, so they're in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so
fine.
I'd be providing the training to you. And that training would be on, kind of basics of public hearing, role and responsibility of planning commissioners. And then, talking about how plans, policies and regulations work, how the planning commission uses those and indeed decisions. And then, usually after those first two or three, I kind of get a fourth item. I glean a fourth area of interest from you guys. When your planning commissioners wanted to do some training on traffic impact analyses. So I was able to find a YouTube video and there was a short video. It's like 10 or 15 minutes explaining that fairly succinctly for a planning commissioner to understand what this, 60+ page report usually includes and why it's important.
Do you have tentative dates?
I don't. So I guess the question for the commissioners is, do you want to start that in December or do you want to start it in January?
I say start in January and maybe do one of them. If it's a short meeting, do it directly after. But I can also see maybe doing them on their own as well. But maybe if we're scheduling one for mid-January, that isn't a long meeting, that would be a good place to do the first one.
We could also schedule something like on the, I guess it'd be the 7th of January. This is just kind of make believe. But instead of just having a 1-hour training, maybe you do 2 and you knock out maybe half the training or, a good portion of it. We could get to the basics and do some very foundational training so that you feel maybe better prepared for your
Okay.
next hearings.
A Tuesday would work well for me. I don't know if the other commissioners have
I didn't
nights
even,
that
I
work
didn't look at
better.
the calendar. It'd be like, I tried to do it on a Wednesday, so.
Okay, so sorry, the 7th was a Tuesday. That's why I
Yeah,
said
so it'd
Tuesday.
be like the 8th. I propose either the 8th or the 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for January and February, a lot of Wednesdays are ski races up at Hoodoo, and both my kids are doing those. So it'll actually be hard for me to get here on Wednesdays.
What about, can we change it to a different day besides Wednesday?
I know. I don't,
I'm literally at your service, so I will do it at any time, mostly any time of day
Yeah.
for you. If it needs to be during the day, we could do it.
We could do a Tuesday or a Thursday.
I mean, I.
It has to be in the evening for me. Can't be during the day.
Okay.
Unless I bring all my. I know. Why don't we all take it to Sun River and make it an all-day thing?
as long as you
We could
allow
do-
other people to come,
Yeah,
then
there,
it's allowed,
plus
right?
one. We could have.
It
in
is
Sun
public.
River for
People
the
can
day.
come, yeah. Mhm. We've provided meals for these trainings before, yes. Due to your high salaries, we try to compensate you.
I would even approve my own meal that day out of my own pocket.
Okay, so why don't we work with you guys on finding a day, a 2-day or 2 evenings in January? We can probably just knock this out.
I think that sounds good. Maybe
I
like
mean,
at
it doesn't have to be at 6:30 if you guys
Mhm.
want to come earlier.
Well, but Chair Irvin's working out of
Mhm.
town.
Yep. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not very flexible.
No,
right
that's
now.
I'm
And
just not flexible during the day, but evenings are fine.
yep. And as long as it's after 6:30, I can be here.
That's fine too.
And like I said, Wednesdays are randomly race days in January and February.
Okay, so it sounds like a Thursday.
And you can cater food.
Oh, we do. We do. It was great. I remember last time we did it, we brought in bread bowls or soup from one of our places in town. It was great. It was great food.
I think that sounds great. So maybe you guys can send out an email with possible dates and then we can
Yeah.
respond because I'd like to know I don't know what Commissioner Reynolds' schedule is either.
Yeah. Yeah. End of January. Okay. So we'll definitely do it second, third, or fourth week of January. Try to just get this knocked out, get you set up for the year, and then move on.
That sounds great. The first year that I was on, there was a planning commission seminar or something, or maybe it was for developers. It was in Bend. at the River House, and that was really helpful. I don't know if there's anything else like that in Central Oregon that maybe isn't just for planning commissioners, but it's just planning topics in general. I think that would be awesome if we just knew about that.
Yeah, those are good because you do get time with your other commissioners across the state and you get to hear about their experiences mostly. Sometimes it's not so good. We've also had a trainer come and do it. Well, because sometimes it's so broad that you just, there's no depth to the conversation. You don't feel like you learn anything, right? So that's why it's in some cases not so good. So oftentimes this is why I've done it myself, because I have a good feel for where I think you guys need just a little more support and areas where I think you have interest, and we can kind of just tailor it to that. Now, certainly you don't get the benefit of the other planning commissioners, but, from around the state, but, that partly why I'm suggesting this approach.
No, I think either or all sound great.
Sounds great. I think that is about it. Thank you for coming this evening.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for your service to our community. Appreciate that very much.
Awesome. We can adjourn this meeting at 7:10 PM.